What is going on, my beautiful LARPers and LARPettes? Today we're going to go over the new SIG P365X Macro and what exactly is the difference between all the other 365 handguns. Now, first of all, full disclosure, I did purchase this with my own money that my wife lets me have for my monthly allowance if I'm a good boy. And also all the SIGs that you're going to see on this table here, I did purchase every single one of them. Now, to keep the name a lot shorter, I'm just going to call this the SIG Macro. But what exactly did they change on this? Now, before I get into all those details, I'm going to give you a little bit of history with my SIG purchases. And this was my first 365 that I picked up, and this is also their first introduction into the 365 series. And I'm pretty sure everyone on here has seen the original 365s. Now, when this first came out, I was a little skeptical on the whole micro gun concept, just because I didn't really like the way small guns shot. I didn't like their snappiness, I didn't like the grips, I didn't really like, not just this one specifically, but I didn't like a lot of the micro guns out there. It just didn't fit me. So I just ended up carrying a Glock 19, but decided to give it a try. And as expected, when I did get this guy here, it felt really nice in the hands with that little extended magazine there, but I just felt it was lacking a lot for me personally. I still felt it was a tiny bit snappy with that shorter barrel. The trigger was it was whatever. I didn't really care for it. It felt too spongy, not really crisp compared to other handguns that I was used to shooting. No optic cuts at the time. And the biggest thing that always gets me on micro guns is this whole leaving your pinky off of the grip when you're going to reload. That usually causes pretty bad issues when it comes to me trying to reload fast. I end up pinching the crap out of the meat of my palm here. And usually when I reload, I have to do that whole pinky's up like I'm sipping some fine tea reload, and I just didn't really like doing that. So I ended up giving this to my wife, like I always do when I make a impulsive gun purchase and I don't really end up liking the outcome of that purchase, and I don't really want to sell my guns either, because you know they do hold their value. Then fast forward, the P365XL came out, and this one I was pretty damn excited for, because I was like, okay, there's a lot of stuff that changed that I didn't like about the original that were now available on this one here. Now this one, as you can see, it's all customized by Terran Tactical, but internally everything is the same. I just have some fancy cuts on the outside and have a coated barrel. So they ended up going with a bigger grip, which I liked a lot at the time, and a longer slide, which I really liked a lot at the time also. So that was enough for me to go ahead and purchase this guy. So when I got this, I did notice that they made a whole flat face 90-degree break trigger as opposed to the curve. They did add a optic cut. They did add a little extended beaver tail on this one compared to the older one. Accessory rail is still the same, and like I said earlier, longer barrel, longer grip, and kept that same 12 round capacity with the flush fit mag. They do have an extended, I believe it's a 15 round magazine. It just sticks out farther than it's supposed to. It probably sticks out like that far. So I did actually carry this one here before I got it all cut up by Terran for, I believe, a year or so, maybe a year and a half in the summertime. So in summertime, I want to carry a smaller gun, so I carried this guy here and shot thousands of rounds through it. Never gave me an issue. It's been a perfectly great EDC during the summertime. So throughout the year and a half that I was carrying this guy, I've come to figure out that there's about 3 things that I don't like about this one here specifically. Number one being, still, it's a tiny bit snappy, but not as snappy as this guy here. I still rather carry this one over the original. Second is the accessory rail. Them going from this rail here, which is a proprietary accessory rail, to the same proprietary accessory rail, I was kind of bummed out, because you have to use their SIG versions of lights, or the TLR 7 that has that SIG adapter, and I just didn't like that I had to buy a specific light to fit this guy. Lastly was the way the magazines fell out with my hand. So I have fairly small hands for a dude. It fit well, but my palm was always going over the mag well and touching the magazine. Every time it came for a reload and I were to bring it back and break my grip, when I break my grip, it kind of gets hung up on the meat of my palm there. So usually I'd have to still kind of let go of my pinky to let that magazine fall free, which kind of didn't make my reloads consistent. So I had to just figure out a way to do it, either by stripping that out or letting it fall freely by picking my pinky up. It was still kind of a annoying thing to have. Now from there, I was like, well, let me see if I can find something that is gonna fit my criteria of a carry gun that is gonna fix all those issues that I was having. So I went ahead and bought the SIG P320X Compact, hoping that this would be the ultimate carry gun for me, but it wasn't. So it did fit pretty much all of my criteria in terms of what I didn't like about the XL, but there was another issue that I didn't like about this guy. So it did have a accessory rail that I could put pretty much any light on here. It did have a bigger grip where I didn't have to break my grip in order for that magazine to fall free, which I thought was great. You still have a optic cut back here. Pretty much everything else that feature-wise that you get on the XL, you get on the X Compact. Shootability was a little bit better as well, but the problem arose of it being heavier, thicker, kind of like my first high school girlfriend. So it wasn't really the ideal everyday carry. I kind of ended up just shelving this guy and being like, all right, well, still goodbye, but something that I don't really want to carry all the time. Then fast forward to about a month ago or so, this little guy came out, which is the SIG P322. I'm gonna have a video on this guy very soon, guys. I already did the whole intro. I just gotta do the talking points on it. But anyways, back to what I was talking about. I loved how thin this grip was, and I loved that it was an extra length. So it felt similar in style of the XL, but it didn't feel as fat as the X Compact. So the first thing that popped in my head is, oh yeah, cool, they came out with a 22, but why can't they make this grip for a XL? It fits perfectly in my hands. I can do the reloads great. Accessory rail, they need to come out with this for the 365. I kind of spoke too soon because I think a couple weeks after that, the Macro comes out. And this was one of the ones that I was super excited about because this fixed pretty much every issue that I had with the line of 365 series. Now they did make a bunch of in between, like the, what is it, the one where the sights are a little bit lower. Right before this one, the SIG XL Spectre comp, I believe. I was this close to buying that, but for one, that's $1,200, and two, I would kind of have the same exact issues that I was having with the XL in the first place, which was the grip and the accessory rail. They kept the same exact stuff on that guy, other than adding the compensator. So it was fixing one issue, which was making it a lot less snappy, but still didn't fix the other issues I was having. So I kind of decided to hold off on that. But anyways, when I saw this, I was super excited. Had to buy one as soon as I heard it, got it in. Now doing a little review for you guys. Let's go through all the details, shall we? So starting at the front here, you do have a 2-port compensator that's directly milled into the slide. Now you don't really see just the slide being milled itself. You usually see the barrel being ported as well as the slide being ported to fit together. But on this one, they just went ahead and ported the slide, which at first I thought it was a little bit of a gimmick, but I'll get into why I think this is actually better than having a ported barrel. Now, you do have a little 3.1-inch barrel, which is the exact same barrel size as the original P365. So you can actually fit this barrel into this guy, no problems, but you cannot fit the XL barrel into this guy. I already tried. Now they did move the sight back, and another big change here is you don't have to remove your rear sight in order to put an optic on. So on the original XL, you had to rely on the optic having a little sight built into the back of it, so that way you can co-witness. You don't have to do that anymore with the Macro. You can put any of your micro optics on this guy. Now they did keep the same exact style serrations on this as they did on all the other 365s. If you move on down, you do have a new, and this was super exciting, a new 1913 style rail down here, which I can fit my 1913 style lights, and I believe you can fit the X300. I don't have different keys right now. This key doesn't fit on this guy, but I feel like if you had a different key, you can fit it. I've seen photos and videos of other people having their X300s on the Macros, so double check on that, but I feel like you can. But to me, that doesn't really look all that great. I mean, it looks kind of funky. We're having a gigantic light on the front of your gun. So I went ahead and got the TLR7 sub and slapped that on that guy. This one looks a little bit cleaner looking. Just doesn't fit flush in the front, but I don't mind. Now moving back to the trigger. The trigger on this guy was still kind of It's not the best trigger in the world. It's manageable, but compared to my XL, it felt a little bit heavier and not as crisp for some reason. Maybe because I have a lot of rounds to this guy, but I just think my XL trigger feels a little bit more crisp than that guy. And I haven't done anything to this guy here. Even before tearing cut the slide and stuff. This is still a OEM trigger. So if it's one thing I change on this guy, it'd probably be the trigger, but I don't really mess with my carry guns. I usually leave them completely bone stock. That's just me. Now you still have the same exact slide stop and takedown lever. They did change up the mag release though. So it has some texturing compared to the smooth XL or the original 365. You have a extended beaver tail back here, even more extended than the XL version. So this one is slightly longer, where the original XL didn't even have one. And like always, they kept the little cute ducks on the back of the back plate there. Now to get to the major change on the 365 series is the grip itself. So the grip is longer. I do not have that issue anymore with releasing the mags, which is amazing. You now have interchangeable back straps, which I think is really, really cool, that you could swap it out for different hand sizes. So like I said, I have small hands. I have the small one here. I like that nice 1911 style grip angle that it has going on. And I do want to point out, while shooting, I can feel this shifting a little bit. Like if I have a little loose grip while I'm changing a mag or something, I can feel it moving around, which is kind of an OCD thing that I have. If something starts shifting around, I feel like I'm breaking the gun. You're not breaking the gun, but it's just a little annoying sometimes. With that being said, I already know there's probably a billion aftermarket companies out there going to make some new back straps. I'd like to see some brass back straps to make the gun a little bit heavier and maybe a little bit more texturing on the back so you can get a nice grip on there. I do want to point out that the X Macro and the XL are not the same width. So if you're looking at it, the X Macro is slightly thicker than the XL. Definitely longer, but that's a given because it's gonna hold a bigger magazine, but thicker. So when I first got it, I didn't think it was gonna be thicker than the XL. I thought it was gonna be the same exact thickness. It was a little surprising when I felt it. I was like, oh, this is definitely thicker than the XL, but it wasn't to the point where I was like, oh man, I don't want a thick gun again, because the thick gun that I bought originally was this guy, but it's nowhere near the thickness of the X Compact. So the X Compact is a very thick boy. So it's only slightly thicker than the XL. And to point something else out, the trigger guard, let me take this light off for a second. The trigger guard is thicker than the XL. So if you're planning on using your XL holsters and stuff like that, it might be a little bit more difficult to put them in. You might have to modify the holster or just get new holsters that are gonna fit this guy, because this guy is thicker, where a lot of the retention on a holster is going to revolve around the trigger guard. Or if you have a 365 holster with a light, you might be able to get away with it because most of the retention is around that light itself and not the trigger guard anymore. Now another huge change, the magazine. 17 rounds of 9mm Freedom Seeds in your hand. The 365 series, I believe, was one of the first guns that came out with a, what was it, a 10 round? The way things are changing nowadays compared to before, when a micro gun was holding, I believe, like 6 rounds of 9mm to now 17 rounds, it's pretty damn nuts, which I am loving it. Now with that said, this magazine does fit the XL and the original. Looks funky, but it fits. So if you want to carry 17 rounds in your other guns, you can do that. And for the magazine though, is you do not have a flush fit magazine with this guy here. You do have a little bit of that portion sticking out, which might potentially be involved with your printing style. Now, if you put this directly side by side with the X Carry, they are virtually identical in length from the grip and length on the slide, which is pretty much telling me that the X Macro is an X Carry on a diet. Also, on the topic of slides, all these slides are interchangeable with the Macro frame. So I can put the XL slide on this Macro frame, or I can put the original slide on this Macro here. But with the original, you do have the slide ending here, which leaves a little bit of that rail hanging out forward. I already know there's going to be people putting these slides on with a threaded barrel and a compensator with this frame, which I think is going to be pretty damn cool because they already do it to the 320 series. And on the topic of compensated slides, I want to go back to my comment earlier that I said I feel this is better than an actual ported barrel and ported slide. The reason being, on the ported barrels and the ported slide, usually when I'm shooting from retention, right, I have the gun up near my body where the gases are shooting up kind of towards my face, but I kind of torque my gun to the right or so, and those gases go a different direction. But sometimes if I'm at a certain angle, those gases come up and smack me in the face. And with a ported barrel and slide, I usually feel some of the, I don't know if it's the residue or I don't know if it's fragmentation off of the copper jacket on the round that are shooting up and smacking me in the face. It's nothing major where it's gonna destroy my face, but I can feel something peppering me in my face where I usually torque it a little bit more to the right. On this guy, I don't really feel that. I feel a lot of gas, but I don't feel any of that fragmentation coming out and smacking me. I feel like that's due to the round already completely leaving the barrel and then the gas is coming out behind that round, as opposed to when that round is twisting inside of the barrel, maybe there's fragments that are grinding off and shooting up through the ports while it's still spinning and shooting out of the gun. I don't know. I'm just a guy that is possibly making some stuff up in his head, but I just think that I felt less on this version of porting as opposed to the other one. I want you guys to tell me in the comments, what do you think about that? Do you think my theory is correct in terms of fragmentation coming out of a poured barrel and slide compared to just the ported slide? Also, with the slide just being ported, it does tend to get a little bit hot, but not hot to where it's unbearable, where I'm like, oh man, I gotta put this gun down. It helps a lot that this frame is plastic. I can pretty much crank down on the frame and shoot as quick as I can without burning my fingers. I didn't feel like I was gonna burn myself or stick it in my holster and burn myself down there, because that would have been bad news. But it does tend to get a little bit hotter than non-ported slide guns. But I just told myself I gotta stop being a pansy and just deal with the heat. But yeah, guys, I think I went through every single detail about this macro here. If I missed something, I apologize. Everything internally, I believe, is the same as the other two, other than the trigger compared to the 365. Also, the amount of rounds I shot through this in total was around 450 rounds. And within those 450 rounds, I had 0 malfunctions. It worked great. This comp does what it's intended to do. It keeps that recoil down a lot more than these two, and it's very pleasant to shoot. Accuracy wise, I didn't push it too hard on that, which I should have. I completely forgot because I was trying to film that whole intro there and look cool rather than be practical. From what I was doing, it was pretty much comparable to these two, which I don't see why it wouldn't be. It's technically the same gun, just a bigger frame. For reloads, it was pretty simple. I didn't have an issue reloading the gun. The mag well is a little flared out, but again, the reloads were pretty much a breeze. So overall, what do I think of this guy and who do I think it's for? And is it worth the upgrade if you have any of these sitting on the table? So I think is a very, very nice gun. I was super excited, like I said, that it came with two 17 round magazines, but now coming with 17 round magazines, it fixed pretty much every issue that I had. I feel that the trigger is probably at this point in time the only downside that I see to the macro. It fixed my issue with the rail, it fixed my issue with being so snappy, it fixed my issue with the magazine, fixed my issue with the grip. This was all of my prayers answered in a carry gun. But with all those features added, is it worth the upgrade over the XL? And I'm only going to compare it to the XL because I feel like the XL is already an upgrade over the 365. At this point in time, yes, because I'm impatient. I don't want to wait for a frame to come out. And the reason why I'm going to point out the frame is because that's the major difference between this guy and the XL if you don't have a problem with the recoil on it. Now, I'm not a fortune teller or anything. I don't know the inside scoop on what SIG's doing, but I can almost guarantee you now that this 17 round magazine is out, there are going to be a lot of options in terms of frames. I love the fact that SIG went this route. Now it's giving the opportunity for others to base frames around this mag, or even for SIG, which I'm pretty sure they're gonna sell this frame by itself because they sell every other grip module out there for all of their other handguns that they have. And with that said, SIG does sell these grip modules for super damn cheap. So do you wanna wait for this frame to come out, or maybe the Wilson Combat frame? So I can't really tell you how to spend your money, but I can tell you that I am very happy with this. And when the grip modules do come out, I'm going to switch all of my 365s to that grip module. And another reason why I bought it is to make a video for you guys. I want to try to kick my channel off the right way and give you guys as much information as I can. So really, it's up to you guys. whether you want to spend the extra to get this gun or just wait for the frames to come out, because overall, I think the heart is within the magazine and the frames. And just thinking about that, you're really gonna have to spend a little bit more on the magazines. I completely forgot that you're gonna have to buy magazines. So this comes 800 bucks the way it sits with 2 magazines, or if you already spent $600 on this guy, maybe $60 on a frame and $30, $40 on 2 magazines, it might come out to close to this price as it is. So if you don't have a 365, I would go directly to this guy. This guy answers all the problems that you're gonna have. But if you already own a 365XL, maybe wait for those frames to come out and buy the magazines and the frames separately. And I'm most likely gonna be carrying this guy 24/7 from now on, unless something else catches my eye, because you know, I'm a gun whore. But I hope you enjoyed this video on the X Macro. I appreciate you guys for subscribing. See you in the next one.